Rosangela Segundo-Osorio was a first grader in Hillsborough County, Florida. Bubbly, enthusiastic. 6 or 7 years old, the age where a kid still holds a hand crossing the street. She was crossing Sheldon Road with her mother. They were in a marked crosswalk. They were doing precisely what every adult in that child's life had told her to do. Find the white lines, use the crossing, go where the road says to go. A driver killed her there. There was no chase, no wrong turn, no shortcut through a bad part of town. No storm, no ice, no blind curve. A marked crosswalk on a road that thousands of people use every single day without thinking about it once. She was one of 618 people killed while walking in the Tampa Bay area over 5 years. And that is what every road on this list has in common. 10 Florida highways where the thing that kills people is not the thing anybody watches for, and every one of them gets measurably worse the moment the sun goes down. Here is the number that should stop you. Florida is the 5th deadliest state in America for people on foot. Between 2020 and 2024, 3,726 pedestrians were killed here, the 3rd highest total in the country, behind only California and Texas. 9 of the 27 deadliest metro areas in the United States are in this one state. Coming up, a highway with 132 miles and the worst fatality rate per mile in America. A road where the state has installed technology at more than 100 exit ramps to solve a problem that is almost entirely nocturnal. And a road at number 1 that is not an interstate at all, and kills more people than any of them. So here's the quiet contradiction at the heart of all 10 of these places. Every one of them looks completely fine. Picture the drive the way you would actually make it. 6 lanes, fresh asphalt, palm trees in the median, good signage, wide shoulders, a speed limit sign, a Publix and a gas station, and a strip mall going by on the right. Nothing your eyes would flag at 55 miles per hour. That is exactly the problem. Danger you can see, you slow down for. Ice, fog, a hairpin turn, a construction zone. Your foot moves before your brain finishes the thought. None of these roads give you that. They give you the opposite. They give you the visual language of a highway that has been thoroughly engineered for you. And here is the one fact I want you to hold on to, because we come all the way back to it at the end. Almost none of the people who died on these roads were doing anything reckless. Most of them were not even driving. Hold on to that one. Let's count it down. Number 10. Interstate 10. When I first drove Interstate 10 across the Panhandle, I thought I'd found the easiest road in Florida. Pine trees, 4 lanes, 70 miles an hour, almost nobody on it. I could have steered it with 2 fingers. Here's the wildcard fact. Rural highways like Interstate 10 still see hundreds of deaths a year in this state, and when a crash happens out here, it is far more likely to be a fatal one. Now, here's the part everybody gets wrong. People assume a rural interstate is safer because there is less traffic to hit. What matters is not how often you crash. It is what happens afterward. Out here, the ambulance is further away. The trauma center is much further away. There is nobody behind you to call it in. Every minute that a crowded urban interstate saves you by accident, an empty rural one takes back. And after dark, you add the thing that actually defines this road. 200 miles of pine forest on both shoulders, no lighting whatsoever, and deer standing at the tree line. Beautiful road, empty road, and the longest wait in the state for anybody to reach you. Number 9. US 27. When I first drove US 27 through the middle of the state, I thought it was farm country. Sugarcane, citrus, cattle, long flat straightaways with a stripe down the middle. Here's the wildcard fact. In a study analyzing 16,000 Florida crashes over 5 years, US 27 recorded 349 fatal crashes, 5th highest of any road in the state. Here's why that surprises people. This road is not busy in the way Interstate 95 is busy. It is agricultural and long, and it runs through counties most Floridians never visit. And that same study found something that reframes this entire video. State highways accounted for 39% of Florida's fatal crashes. U.S. highways, another 30%. Interstates, 13%. Read that again. The roads with the barriers, the medians, the controlled access, and the on-ramps account for barely 1 crash in 8. Almost 70% happen on exactly the kind of road you stop thinking about the second you get on it. Farm country, flat road, and 2/3 of the state's dying happening on roads like this one. Number 8. State Road 50. When I first drove State Road 50 through Orlando, I was just trying to get across town. Colonial Drive, 6 lanes, strip malls, a light every quarter mile. Here's the wildcard fact. In a 3-year window, 61 people died on State Road 50 in Orange County alone. And here's the number underneath it that makes this road different. 13 of those 61 deaths involved distracted driving. That is 21%, roughly triple the distraction rate of most of the other roads on this list. That is not a coincidence, and it is not because Orlando drivers are worse people. A rural highway asks almost nothing of your eyes. A commercial arterial asks everything. Signals, turn lanes, brake lights, parking lot entrances, a bus pulling out, somebody crossing mid-block, a sign you're actually trying to read because you're looking for a specific business. Your eyes are working the entire time, and none of that work is spent on the road surface. After dark, add glare. Headlights, neon, illuminated signs, wet pavement throwing all of it back at you. 6 lanes, a light every quarter mile, and your attention already spent before anything goes wrong. Number 7. Interstate 75. When I first drove Interstate 75 across Alligator Alley, I thought it was one of the strangest roads in America. Straight, fenced, sawgrass to the horizon, and a canal running along the shoulder. Here's the wildcard fact. Interstate 75 recorded 371 fatal crashes in that 5-year analysis, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration rated it among the deadliest highways in the entire country during summer months, with well over 100 fatal crashes a year in that window. Now here's the myth about this road. Everyone assumes the danger is the wildlife or the isolation. It is neither. It is that this road is boring in a very specific way. 75 miles of straight line with no curve, no town, no grade, and no visual change of any kind. That is not restful. Highway hypnosis is a real documented phenomenon. The road stops requiring conscious steering and attention drifts somewhere else entirely. Then the sun goes down, and the sawgrass disappears, and the only thing left in your visual field is your own headlights on white paint, repeating, straight road, sawgrass, and a landscape with nothing in it to keep you awake. Number 6. US 41. When I first drove US 41 down through Lee County, I could not tell where the highway ended and the town began. Tamiami Trail, dealerships, motels, 6 lanes, and people walking along the edge of all of it. Here's the wildcard fact. US 41 recorded 447 fatal crashes, 3rd highest in the state, behind only US 1 and Interstate 95. And this is the road where the real pattern of this list becomes visible. US 41 is what traffic engineers call a strode. It is trying to be 2 incompatible things simultaneously. It is a highway, built to move vehicles at 55, and it is a street, lined with the businesses, apartments, and bus stops of the people who live directly on it. Those 2 purposes are in direct conflict, and the conflict is resolved in favor of the vehicles every single time. That is what dangerous by design actually means, and it is not an accusation of malice. Wide lanes, few crossings, long distances between signals, every one of those choices was made deliberately to move cars efficiently. They work. They just also mean that a person trying to reach a bus stop on the far side has a choice between walking a half mile out of their way or crossing 6 lanes. Dealerships, bus stops, and a road that cannot decide what it is. Number 5. Interstate 4. When I first drove I-4 between Tampa and Orlando, I thought I was on an ordinary interstate. 132 miles, theme park exits, rental cars, cones. Here's the wildcard fact. When Teletrack Navmen analyzed federal crash data by deaths per mile, Interstate 4 came out as the deadliest highway in the United States of America. 150 deaths across 132 miles. Not the deadliest in Florida, in the country. Ahead of I-95, which is 14 times longer. Now here is the comparison that explains it. Length hides everything. I-95 runs 1,900 miles and recorded around 1,200 deaths in 4 years, which sounds catastrophic, but spread over that distance, it lands 8th. I-4 has nowhere to spread anything. And this road has a very particular problem. An enormous share of the vehicles on it are being driven by people who have never driven it before, are looking for an exit they cannot picture, and are in a rental car whose mirrors they adjusted 20 minutes ago in an airport garage. At night, in construction, in a rainstorm, in a car that isn't theirs. Highest death rate per mile in America, and a road most of the drivers on it are seeing for the first time. Number 4, State Road 417 and Florida's expressway ramps. And number 4 is not one highway. It is a category, and it is the most purely nocturnal danger in this entire video. When I first drove State Road 417 around Orlando at night, I thought it was the calmest road in Central Florida. Wide, modern, tolled, barely any traffic. Here's the wildcard fact. This is what I promised you at the start. During 2025 alone, the Florida Department of Transportation deployed wrong-way detection systems, radar, cameras, and sensors at 115 exit ramps around the state. They built a technological solution to an almost entirely nocturnal problem. Here are the numbers behind that decision. About 25% of wrong-way highway crashes in Florida result in a fatality. 59% involve alcohol. FDOT reports that a majority happen between midnight and 6 in the morning, most often on weekends. On freeways, 7 out of 10 wrong-way crashes injure somebody, and a fatality is 3 times more likely there than on a regular road. Compare that to every other crash type. Nearly all of them are you making an error. This one is somebody else's error, arriving head-on with a closing speed of 130 miles an hour at 2 in the morning, which is why the Highway Patrol gives one specific piece of advice for driving Florida at night, and almost nobody knows it. Keep right. Wrong-way drivers, being impaired, tend to hug what they believe is the right-hand lane, which is your inside lane. Empty ramp, modern signage, and headlights in the fast lane, pointed the wrong way. Number 3. Interstate 95. When I first drove Interstate 95 through Broward and Miami-Dade, I understood immediately that it was the busiest road I had ever been on in Florida. 10 lanes in places, nobody under 80. Here's the wildcard fact. A 5-year analysis of federal fatal crash data found that a 10-mile stretch of Interstate 95 between Hollywood Boulevard and Northeast 125th Street recorded 51 fatal crashes, the single deadliest road segment in Florida. Widen the frame to the 50 miles from Delray Beach to North Miami, and the count is 181. But here's the statistic that should genuinely bother you. A Sun Sentinel investigation found that a third of all the deadly crashes on the entire length of Interstate 95, from Maine to Miami, through 15 states, happen in Florida. Florida holds about 20% of that highway, 1/5 of the road, 1/3 of the DYing. And here is why night changes this one. On an empty rural road, darkness removes information. On Interstate 95 in South Florida, darkness removes the last thing keeping a very fast, very dense system stable, everybody's ability to read everybody else. 10 lanes of traffic at 80 miles an hour works because drivers are constantly making tiny predictions about the cars around them. Take away depth perception and peripheral detail, and every one of those predictions gets worse at once. 10 lanes, 80 miles an hour, and a third of an entire coastline's deaths in one state. Number 2, US 1. And number 2 is a road you would never expect to be dangerous because it is the prettiest highway in the state. When I first drove US 1, I was in the Keys, doing 45 with water on both sides. Here's the wildcard fact. Across 16,000 analyzed Florida crashes, US 1 recorded 589 fatal crashes, more than any other road in Florida. More than Interstate 95. More than Interstate 4. In one recent year, over 250 DUI-related fatal crashes happened on it. 545 miles, from Key West to the Georgia line. Here's what makes it so strange. US 1 is not one road. It is a chain of completely different roads wearing the same shield. 2 lanes over open water in the Keys, a dense urban artery through Miami, a commercial strip through the Treasure Coast, a quiet coastal highway north of Daytona. And that is exactly the danger, because your driving adapts to a road within a few minutes and then stops adapting. The settings you learned on one stretch are wrong on the next, and nothing announces the change. Add the tourism, add the bars, add sunset over the water, which is the single most photographed thing in the Keys and also the exact moment when the low sun sits directly in the eyes of every westbound driver. Prettiest road in Florida. Most fatal crashes in Florida. Same road. Number 1, US 19. And honestly, this is the one I would not drive after dark at all. When I first drove US 19 through Pinellas County, I thought it was the least remarkable road I had ever been on. 8 lanes in places. Car lots, plazas, chain restaurants, a traffic light, another traffic light. Here's the wildcard fact. In a study analyzing federal and state data across all of Florida's counties, US 19 in Pinellas County was the deadliest road in the entire state. 94 people died on it in 3 years. And US 19 in Pasco County, the very next stretch of the very same road, came in second, with 68. The 2 deadliest roads in Florida are the same road. Now here is why it is number 1, and it is the thing nobody plans for. Look at what killed those 94 people. Drinking was a factor in 13%, distraction in 7%, speeding in 4%. Add those together and you get about a quarter, which means that on the deadliest road in Florida, roughly 3/4 of the deaths involve no impairment, no distraction, and no speeding that anybody recorded. Just people driving normally on a normal road on a normal evening. This is the heart of Tampa Bay, a metro that recorded 618 pedestrian deaths in 5 years and ranks 8th worst in America. That is more than Minneapolis-St. Paul, which is larger and which recorded 165. Tampa Bay kills people on foot at roughly twice the rate of Salt Lake City, Chicago, or Milwaukee, 4 times the rate of Pittsburgh or Boston. Every other road on this list only asks you to survive the traffic. US 19 asks the people crossing it to survive it too, 8 lanes at a time, on foot, in the dark, at a bus stop with no crossing in sight. Deadliest road in the state, second deadliest road in the state, and the same asphalt underneath both. So here's the actual answer. The one all 10 of these have been building toward. Every danger you naturally respect hands you a signal your body already knows. Ice makes the wheel go light. Fog you can watch closing in. A curve you can see coming. Rain you can hear on the roof. Your foot lifts off the gas before you've consciously decided anything. Not one hazard on this list does that. An empty rural interstate gives you no signal. It gives you the opposite, a feeling of ease. A stroad gives you no signal because it is beautifully paved and clearly marked. 132 miles of theme park interstate gives you no signal because it looks like every interstate you have ever driven. And a wrong-way driver gives you no signal at all until roughly 2 seconds before impact. Darkness doesn't create a single one of those. It just takes away the last sense you had left. But there is something specific to Florida underneath all of it, and it is worth saying plainly. These roads are not failing. They are performing exactly as designed. Wide lanes, high speeds, long gaps between crossings, generous sightlines, every one of those choices moves vehicles efficiently, which was the assignment. The people are the part that was not in the design brief. The person at the bus stop, the kid in the crosswalk, the tourist looking for an exit. The road works. It just was not built for them. So if you are ever the one making these drives, and plenty of you will, because half the country visits this state, do the small, unglamorous things. Keep right at night on the interstates. That one is straight from the highway patrol, and it exists specifically because of wrong-way drivers. Assume a person is in the road on any 6-lane arterial after dark. Not might be. IS. Drop your speed on a commercial strip at night more than you think is necessary, because the difference between 35 and 45 is very close to the difference between a survivable impact and a fatal one. And if you are the pedestrian, understand what the data actually says. A marked crosswalk is a legal instruction to drivers. It is not a wall. None of that is exciting. All of it works. Come back one last time to that crosswalk on Sheldon Road. A first grader and her mother, in the white lines, doing exactly what they were told. She was 618th, or 300th, or 12th, nobody knows the order, and it does not matter, because that is precisely what a statistic does to a person. It files them, and that is the real number here. Not 589 fatal crashes, not 94 deaths, not 150 on 132 miles. Empty seats, cars that were expected somewhere and never arrived, a phone ringing out in a kitchen, a backpack that got picked up from school by somebody else. Now, remember what I asked you to hold on to. Almost none of them were being reckless, and most of them were not even driving. They were walking to a bus stop. They were crossing at the lines. They were driving home from work on a road they had driven 1,000 times before. The roads out there are not hunting anybody. That is the hardest part of this. There is no malice anywhere in this story. Only a set of engineering decisions made decades ago, in good faith, to move traffic quickly through places where people live. Those decisions are still there. They are poured into the ground, 6 lanes wide, and they will still be there long after everybody arguing about them is gone. They just wait, patient and enormous, for the moment your attention slips. And after sunset, they barely have to wait at all.